All right. Well, hello, and thank you for joining us for this online event. This is the Artist Talk with Chad Grohman, who I am joined by, as well as other wonderful guests. First, I'd like to thank everyone who has come in to see this exhibition. Now that we've been open by appointment, as well as all those who have seen the exhibition in its online interactive format since the show opened on April 1st on our website. I'd also like to thank Kat Basney and Lisa Vasaturo from the Office of Alumni Relations at RIT, who agreed to partner with us on an event similar to this way back before our closure to the public due to COVID-19. We've since changed to an online format, as with the rest of our events at Main Street Arts. The main part of this event is an artist talk with Chad Grohman, whose exhibition up to now has been on view since April 1st. This is a solo exhibition by Buffalo area artist and RIT professor, and I should also mention alum of RIT. He's the professor of illustration there as well, Chad Grohman. Up to now is a retrospective exhibition which highlights Chad's interest in themes ranging from his reverence to the natural world, his family, music, design, and much more. This exhibition includes a wide range of paintings, sculpture, and mixed media work that showcase Chad's career as an artist and illustrator up to now. Chad, would you like to say hello to the fine people out there?
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks for coming to talk tonight, and hope to, I'm really looking forward to answering some questions and talking about the show and everything that has come out of it.
Great, thank you. And originally this talk was scheduled for Friday, June 5th. However, we decided to postpone it to allow space for important conversations about social justice, the Black Lives Matter movement, and also to not detract from the voices of Black artists, authors, and creators. And in the days following, after postponing the talk, we had conversations with Chad, as well as Kat and Lisa from RIT's Office of Alumni Relations at the College of Art and Design. And our conversations led to reframing the event to address the reasons for postponing, as well as inviting the Dean of the College of Art and Design at RIT, Todd Jokel. We'd also like to encourage you to type your questions for Chad into the comment section, and we'll get to those a little later. But now I would like to introduce Kat Basney and Lisa Vasaturo from the Office of Alumni Relations at RIT. So Kat and Lisa, take it away.
I'd just like to say hello and thank you to everyone, particularly Chad and Brad here tonight for partnering with us to bring this talk together that's open to the general public. So we're really pleased to be part of this partnership, and just thank you all for participating, and thank you for this exhibition and hosting this talk.
Right, and we'd also like to give a special shout out to Sarah, supporting from behind the scenes. Kat and I had the privilege of meeting with Brad and Sarah I think almost a year ago now, and we quickly became excited about the possibilities of what might be, never envisioning that this is what might be, but excited to partner nonetheless. At this point, it's we're delighted to introduce the Dean of the College of Art and Design, who is approaching his 1-year anniversary with us. And so with that, welcome to Todd Jokel.
Thank you, Lisa and Kat. Thank you, Brad and MSA, for inviting us to this, to be a part of this presentation tonight and to share a little about some of the critical events and conversations that have been taking place here. I'd also like to thank all the participants who are joining on Facebook Live. Hopefully this will be a great evening, and we'll get to Chad in short order. And Chad, congratulations on your exhibition. It looks fantastic, and I was just talking to Brad before the live cast began, saying I want to try and get down there. I know it's by appointment, but to see it in person, in addition to the online components. So I guess, we were invited here to just offer some perspectives on things that have been taking place socially and culturally around the nation, and of course, expanding to around the world globally in relation to the terrible tragedy involving George Floyd and that dying at the hands of in police custody. And then the subsequent reactions and calls for change that are sweeping the nation and the world right now. As Lisa mentioned, I'm approaching my 1-year anniversary and another 2 months still to go at RIT. And it's been an incredible year, one that no one could have predicted. We've been moving through COVID-19 and all the changes that has brought us. And then additionally, these new social and cultural challenges that we're involved in right now. I've had a lot of people say, this has been quite a rough year. Can you, in sort of insinuating, could you have imagined this? And no, I couldn't have imagined it, but I can sincerely say that I am very, very grateful and fortunate to be working with such great colleagues at RIT, all of our faculty, our staff, administration, students, alumni. It's been incredible. And then this region, I feel I'm also new to this region, moving here from New Haven, Connecticut, which has its own history and currently engaged in social and equity issues that are incredibly important. But I can't imagine being anywhere else, and I've just been very fortunate. So thank you to all of you that have contributed critical, supportive, and engaged voices over these past several months. Recently I've had some very important conversations with Levon Shepard, who's a faculty member of ours and a longtime faculty member and activist in the Rochester area, a talented artist as well, and very engaged in the local arts community and just the community in general, as well as a alumnus, Charles Gaines, who were both very early Black graduates of RIT. Charles Gaines was our first Black MFA graduate in 1967. I believe he began in 67 and completed in 69. And Levon Shepard completing both undergraduate and graduate degrees early in the 1970s. And sharing, some of my thoughts and doing a lot of listening. I think something that's very critical for all of us to understand right now is there are certainly times to lead, times to speak, and time to listen. And I'm really trying to engage in some very deep listening and understanding what some of the root causes and some of the root concerns are. We've had incredible students. I think our students stepped up with voices of concern and calls for action and calls for meaningful support most immediately. I'd like to also thank John Asp, who is our the gallery director, for bringing some of those student voices immediately to leadership to say we need to be engaged here. And one of the things that we've tried to do is through our RIT City Art Space, which is right at Liberty Pole in the center of Rochester, where the most vocal demonstrations and some other activities have taken place over the last couple of weeks. We've turned that gallery into a storefront where students, faculty, alumni, and we hope to expand this to others, are able to submit works of art, messages of support around inclusivity, Black Lives Matter, calls for equity and justice, and a number of other messages of support along those lines. I'm about to send out an update to the entire college, more so along the lines of fall 2020, but this email that I'm about to send out follows up on an email I sent about maybe a week and a half ago about some of the issues that were gripping us around Black Lives Matter and other areas of social reform and equity. And in this email, I note that we're supporting these initiatives, we're supporting these calls, we're supporting the activities, and we're engaging in these protests as well. And frankly, I think those are the easier parts. the next parts that are to come, which are the actual change, identifying what the root needs and necessities for change are, is going to be the critical and very difficult part. It's going to involve very challenging conversations. It's going to require activity and action that's going to provide systemic change. And it's going to require a lot of us to address uncomfortable issues around white privilege, around inequity, around ways in which we're policing and engaging in Black Lives Matter, as well as minority and inequity in general. And I'm incredibly committed to this. One of the things in my sort of extended conversation with Levon Shepard that I referenced before is, I shared with him some of my activities that have been most prominent or most longstanding in my time in New Haven, Connecticut. And I asked him, do these things really matter? And I'm not going to go through and enumerate them because that's not the point of this conversation. He felt they did, not for any other reason that they demonstrated a sense of understanding and a commitment. And RIT's College of Art and Design is incredibly committed to not only supporting through messages, artwork, and communications, but through action. Something I mentioned in the email that I initially sent to our college is, an education in arts, design, creativity prepares us to create the world that we envision. And we're going to be calling upon our faculty, our students, our staff, our administrators, alumni to be very engaged in listening and then activating change. So, with that, Brad, I'd love to turn it back to you. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. But for those that are participating on Facebook Live, for those of you that are connected with RIT or just connected with these movements, we are here, we're listening, and we are prepared to act in short order. And I encourage you to reach out to me, to reach out to Lisa, Kat, as well as John Asp and the RIT City Art Space Gallery and others. We're committed to systemic change and to listening and learning what we can do to improve the world around us.
No, thank you so much. That's wonderful. Wonderful addition to this evening, and I think it's really great to hear someplace like RIT saying things like that we all, I think, need to hear, and it's definitely something very, very positive. So I'd like to thank all of you from RIT for joining us today. Again, for the alumni office for partnering with us, and we'll get on to the Q&A session with Chad, and also you mentioned speaking with Levon Shepard. Great guy. He was one of my advisors, my thesis, and he was actually in our show prior to Chad's, and Chad was in that show as well. So great person for sure. So
excellent.
All right. Well, thank you all.
Well, thank you, and we'll flip over to Facebook Live now. So you'll just have Chad front and center.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye. All right. Well, as I said, we appreciate sincerely RIT for joining us and adding to this conversation that will definitely be an ongoing one for us at Main Street Arts for sure. So yes, Chad, that brings us to the Q&A portion this evening. Before we get right into the questions, I'd like to start out by just saying, this national attention stemming from the Black Lives Matter movement has been bringing about positive change and getting us all to look inward and evaluate the kinds of things that we can do to make an impact for change. And so the first question I have prepared for tonight is, what can we do as artists and arts organizations to work for social justice? And before Chad answers, I just want to start by mentioning a couple of things Main Street Arts is doing in an effort to bring about a change in our programming. So we're beginning to address the lack of BIPOC artists from our region who are showcased in Main Street Arts programming. And That's an acronym, Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. So focusing on specifically addressing the lack of these artists in our programming at Main Street Arts. So we'll be announcing a call for work specifically for artists who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color from our region. And this will begin with an online exhibition later this summer, and that will ultimately have a direct impact and effect on our 2021 exhibition calendar, as well as on into the future. And we'll also be posting a call for poetry from Black, Indigenous, and people of color who are poets and writers from the region. And we'll end up publishing a journal of this work as well. And that will be as part of our literary arts programming, and also in conjunction with Sulphur Books, which is Main Street Arts' own bookstore. So those are just the first steps that Main Street Arts plans on making in the direction of positive change. So back to Chad, what are your thoughts on the artist's role in social justice and human rights?
Well, I love everything that you're putting into place there at the gallery. And like I think you mentioned earlier, we spoke about this talk was supposed to happen a week ago or something, and we decided that it wasn't time for it. Like Todd said, it was time to listen and to put this show aside. And when this began, it was shocking, obviously. And so you saw, as a illustrator that's promoting, many people are using Instagram, obviously. So I think the first thing that we did, or that I did, was stop posting and give a little space for voices to speak and information to pass to each other. And then when I started getting back into images, I knew that I felt so strongly, like, what could I do? You know, as a visual person, I'm not a speaker. I'm not an orator. I'm not a legislator. I'm a visual person. And that's my tool that I have. So looking at how can I make images with or without verbiage to augment and to strengthen in whatever way I can voices that I believe in the Black Lives Matter. You can't call it a movement. It's not a movement. It's been here for hundreds of years. So using our artwork to benefit the movements that we believe in, or the causes that we believe in, social injustice that we believe in. And, you know, when I'm thinking about these images, you know, as an illustrator, you're always trying to come up with this great idea. It's not the point to come up with this amazing image and this great statement. Just contribute in whatever way you can. So if we're contributing as visual artists, we make the best image that we can to support and to help and to educate ourselves. Not just throwing in the image up there, but taking it upon ourselves to, like, research, read, and see what's going on and what we've been missing, you know, as a white person. What have I been missing, and how can I change that? And, you know, your list of initiatives at the gallery, that's exactly the point, right? There's protests going on and there's action going on, and to make changes in the way that we address making images needs to happen. So, you know, what does that mean for everybody? Like, does that mean that we include multiracial, you know, people of color in our images? Well, yeah. You know, as a white person, am I always drawing white people? Why? You know, why am I not doing that? I love my community. I'm involved a lot in my community, and my community is diverse, and I want to reflect that. The other thing that struck me while you were talking was, you know, what can we not do? As an illustrator getting a commission or a job, you have to decide if that, as an artist, you have to decide, is this job in line with my values? And I know sometimes it's hard to say no to a job, and sometimes you have to. And so, like, that's a sacrifice that I think people need to make. So to make images that you believe in and not contribute to images that you don't agree with, I think is really important. And, you know, it's always been that way. And and I don't think that it's fair to call everybody into being a political artist right now, because not everybody has that in them to do. There are things that you can do, and I think doing some searching of yourself and figuring out how can you contribute, and not contribute in a way that is necessary. That's like, and I haven't seen anybody that's profiting off of it. We shouldn't be. We have to really navigate and be careful that we're doing it right. And I know we all can.
Yeah, and I think another thing that you had mentioned in another conversation that you and I were having was that we're not working in isolation. Even though it may seem, especially now, that we've been kind of isolating from one another in our studios or wherever we're making our work. You're not doing this all by yourself, and the fact that you can tune into what's happening, and even if you're not an activist or you don't think you're a political person, there's a lot you can do, as you're saying. And I think starting with what's most accessible around you and then branching out from there is really the best way to get involved, and also not bite off more than you can chew at that moment. Like, I think it's important to get involved as soon as you can and in any way that you can. And I think that if you can do it in a way that's sustainable for you as well, then that's, I think, going to have the most impact going forward. That's what I've found, at least for myself, and what we've talked about, what Sarah and I have talked about for Main Street Arts and what we can do. So yeah, and I think everything you said was great from the artist perspective, and also thinking about as an illustrator, what that means for you, because there are jobs sometimes that maybe are go against what you believe in, or go against a cause that you support, and so I think that those are all obviously little things, but they add up. And I think that if we keep changing all those little things in our lives, then that will add up to be a greater change. And that's where we see what we talked about from Main Street Arts perspective. Those are really very small things. I mean, it's just realizing that there's a disparity in the types of artists that we show. Definitely nothing that was intentional. It's just the way that it's kind of come to be at this point, and we're realizing that, and we're making a strong change to address that. And then we'll hope that kind of snowballs and we keep going forward. So
it reminds me too, like some of the things that have been said was, it's not enough to be not racist. You have to be actively not racist. So you may be running on what's available or the people that are coming in, but then to recognize that and actively go against that is important. I like that you're doing that.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks. Well, we also, so we mentioned we have your show up behind me. It's currently up. It was the beginning of a pandemic when it arrived here. So really, there's a lot going on in the world, and it's been going on for a long time, but everyone's kind of tuned in and paying attention to these things now. But you dropped off your work just days after the gallery closed to the public. And what was it like to have a very large solo exhibition right at the start of a pandemic?
Well, it's gone through so many phases, really. So when we first dropped off the show, first it was just coordinating the framing and everything and the expectation of the opening. And then when the virus and the isolation went into effect, I knew it was disappointing. And it's a big show for me. And I was really focusing on sick people. So, when these things happen, I started sewing masks, and I was really concerned with my dad and my community and the people that needed face masks to everybody, is wearing them. So I was trying to concentrate more on helping my community than the loss of that show. And it was kind of one thing kept happening, and it almost became kind of funny. We couldn't see the show, and then we couldn't do this and we couldn't do that. And then when now Black Lives Matter is in the front. And I have to say that because now the show has allowed us to get together and have this conversation. So anytime you can take like yourself and what you're doing and set that aside and put someone else in front that you believe in, I think that's a great benefit. So I thought it was unfortunate at first that COVID, in the show, but now I'm grateful for the timing. Like it really allowed better conversations to happen. Not that conversation wasn't going to be nice. I'm just happy that the show brought these conversations out and gave a format to do that. So it's kind of not really. I mean, yeah, the virus took the show away, but did it? I don't know. It also caused the gallery to make a whole new digital format. So these horrible things happen, and we have to get above the wave. We have to get in front of it and run with it and not be pushed aside by it.
Yeah, and I think, going back to thinking about, artists and arts organizations, we're all creative people and we're problem solvers, right? So we are, we're faced with either, a pandemic that totally stops your planning and you can either, submit to that and say, well, I guess, we'll just open back up when this is over, if, whenever that is, or we figure out an alternative. So in that case, it was coming up with the interactive version of the show, which really allows people to see it as I'm seeing it now, even though there's a screen in between them and the work. And similarly, having to decide to postpone the talk to allow for other voices and conversations to happen. I think that without having your show up and having that plan, we would still obviously be making changes here at Main Street Arts. And I think that you would still be addressing things personally, but we wouldn't have, like you said, the opportunity to have this conversation. So I think that, that's another kind of small way that the arts have an impact on, a variety of things, but especially, things surrounding social justice and change for the better.
Yeah, I think it's also the longevity of it, like the endurance. Once the cameras turn away, to keep going is really important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is something to commit to for the long term, and that's really the only way that the change will take hold in our personal lives, and then kind of go further out into hopefully the rest of humanity. So, and
it should change us. We should be changed. I was having a conversation with somebody about another program I was running, and that came up. And we need to grow as people, and we need to change and improve. So, take those opportunities.
Yeah. See, so and I think that these questions seem to kind of there's crossover. So we may touch back on some of these questions again as we go, but I'll keep going through the questions that I have here for you. And again, if anyone has questions for Chad, you can leave those in the comments as you're listening, and we will ask those as we're going here. So so thinking about your work in this show. As I mentioned, it's a little bit of a retrospective, kind of looks back at the last decade or so, probably a cross-section of your work, because you are, the kind of person that seems like you're always making art. But your work, even though it's varied and it's across many different genres and techniques, always has a consistent voice, even though it travels across a variety of styles and techniques. So I know it's often difficult to know internally your motivations or, why you do the things that you do, because you just do them. But do you have any idea what kind of holds your work together, especially in an exhibition with such variety?
That's a tough question, because, that the exhibition is a good example of a lot of different things. I mean, I work in a lot of different ways. We teach in illustration, we teach technique, we teach, application, materials, things like that. That's actually not so, and I think the show is proof of that. it's not so hard to like learn a technique. You can come up with a technique and run with it a year and then change it. And that's kind of what I do. The one thing we can't teach, and we don't even need to teach, is that personal point of view that each artist has in making a picture. The more that you make, the more that shines and comes out. So we don't need to teach it, because every artist, as a singular artist, has that. It just needs to expose itself through repetition, like work. So, you could have a point of view of, I want everything to be small, or I want everything to float, or something like that. That still wouldn't even matter. It's what comes out of your hand, and you can't help that. And that's why, well, not just that I love art itself, but illustration I love, but it also just fascinates me, because you can really work in any technique. It doesn't matter. It's your message and your voice and your point of view and what you're trying to say, to pull out an emotional connection, or just someone else's emotional connection. But just like we're talking about with Black Lives Matter, we can say a lot with a picture. And if that picture is a tree, or a whole slice of life scenery, it's going to come across consistent, because you made it as an artist. So it's part of the fun of producing multiple techniques. You can't hide it. You can't hide from it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And do you think for you, I mean, has it seemed like it's always been there for you, or do you feel like there was a distinct moment that you're like, yeah, this really feels like this is my unique voice or vision?
No, it wasn't always there for me, and it took my teachers to help me. That's why I like teaching. I got so much out of my teachers, and I credit every one of them for where I am, from high school to RIT at undergrad to Hartford at graduate school. Like, my teachers were really important. And, you get a teacher that can help identify that piece and sift those other pieces away, and they'll help you find it.
And as I said before, it seems like you're always making art. Like I got to know you at RIT, actually, because I took a class from you when I was there for my MFA. And ever since I've known you, which that was, I guess that was 10 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago. So time flies.
Yeah.
But ever since then, it seems like you're always making art. You're always, doing a freelance job or just making something for yourself. And I know that for myself in making art, there's always, like, studio practice ends up taking the back burner a lot of the time, just because there's so many other demands in life. So I guess, what keeps that drive going for you? And also, do you ever get burned out and just have to walk away, or do you somehow push through?
There's a few things there. I think burnout's an important conversation. Burnout's no problem. Apathy's the tough one. I don't mind burning out. Burnout, I just rest a little bit and go back. But I gotta say, I haven't burned out. I do make a lot of images, and I'm freelancing, or I'm doing a demo at RIT, or whatever that is. I'm still doing personal work. So I think the early part of your question was, was that what coinciding, like personal work and studio work? And
yeah, just kind of like what keeps that drive for making work at all going?
I love pictures, and part of it is, I'm not like I said, I can talk, but I can say more with an illustration. And one of the things that working with people, or creating images, knowing how much I value community and living things. So I have a fire to draw that and to paint that. And I think I'd be kidding myself if I didn't also say I don't know. So an artist as a person, if you are going into art as a profession, that's great. You're going to make money on what you love to do. I don't know that I could do, I can't not draw. I can't not constantly make things. If unfortunately, if I have an opening in my time, I fill it. I do a lot of work for free. I do a lot of donation. I do a lot of, if it's a program I believe in, or someone that needs a lot of artwork that I believe what they're doing, I'll just make it for them. Now that's tough to say because I sell work too, and it's in a certain realm. But I believe in volunteerism, so I do make a ton of work, and I part of it is because there was a point when I was freelancing before I went to graduate school, and all I was doing was digital work, and I really wanted to get back traditional, so I went to graduate school, and I realized that there was a lot of years that I missed out on making pictures, and I never forgot, like, what could I have made? What if I don't draw something tomorrow, what is not being made? And for something or for someone. As a commercial person, I'm really used to like being someone's hands. And I like working with people. So I like executing people's vision, and I like contributing to it. I like helping them see something that they didn't quite see. And I love working with people. And I love like the excitement and energy of working together. And so when I'm here at my table and I'm just making something by myself, I'm still thinking of other people when I make it, which I don't know if that's a good thing. That's what it is.
And, you know, I guess your connection to art and to making pictures goes beyond, I mean, you're a teacher too. So, I mean, it goes beyond teaching and just making art, but you've also recently started a podcast in that realm as well, right?
Yeah, and that's been fun because we were talking about styles. I went down another technique road that I hadn't been doing. So I'm doing a like a cover page for each podcast. So I get to paint in this style once a week, although I put it in my freelance too. Yeah. So when the podcast, when RIT decided that, well, when everybody decided that we needed to separate, at first we were really concerned with where each student was, and we wanted to ease into it with our short window of time. So it was like a lot of stuff going on in a really small window. And I felt in illustration, we really transitioned well. This was like, this is our world. Work. I've met very few, if a very small handful of my clients around the country or world. So no problem for us, you know. And I really missed the students, and I really wanted to make sure, even though I felt I was giving them the closest approximation to a classroom experience as possible, I wanted them to have more. So I started Teaching Illustrators podcast. And actually years ago, I had a magazine I started called Teaching Illustrators. And it was interviews of teachers. It's a play on words, teaching illustrators and also teaching illustrators, you know, teaching students, but also by the teaching illustrator. So I brought that back in podcast form, and then initially was going to interview art directors, teaching illustrators, and then alumni. And so I started doing that. I interviewed Arlene Osejchek from the Fillmore in San Francisco, who I worked with, and she gave a great interview. And then I took that interview, went on my courses, and had the students interact with questions, and then did a follow-up podcast on that. And since that, it's kind of grown into, like, it's going to obviously define its own thing, but it'll always be illustrators, whether they're tattooers, teachers, or, you know, the hermit illustrator. And also I've had a couple of alumni that have really done well. And so, you know, and in their careers, so I wanted to talk to them and give them a voice. So that podcast, I love doing it. It's made me, I'm a lifelong learner. I've learned editing, you know, with that. And I get to paint every time. And then when I came back to Instagram to post, I decided, you know, I had been reading a lot, and someone that I kind of started being friends with through the gallery, actually, Atlan. And so I became friends with him on Instagram. So I interviewed him, and he's doing a lot with Black Lives Matter, and he's really vocal. I love his artwork, Outland Arceo Wetzel. I would check him out if you can. I like reading his story. I like looking at his work. So I had contacted him to see if he would do an interview with me and talk about visual activism and what he's doing. He's in Chicago, and it was a great conversation. So and it bore out of just meeting him on Instagram. So the podcast, I think once we get back I'm on my 10th episode. This will be the 10th. I'll play this. And I'll keep interviewing, and it's really great information for students on art directors' points of view, creative directors' points of view, on what they can expect when they graduate. So I made it for the students, and it's been a great experience, and it's been a nice way even to collect with alumni. Happy.
And I mean, do you have a sense of, I mean, I think you probably would just keep doing it until you don't want to do it anymore. But I mean, you're at 10 already. So I mean, do you just kind of keep seeing that as a consistent, I'm just going to keep doing them and just keep posting them as I go? Or do you have a sense of like, well, I'll do this many, take a little break, get some ideas, and then do like another second season or something?
I don't think so. So I started pretty much after the isolation, after everybody didn't come back from RIT. And I see a lot of value in it. I see it being really important. I can't wait to get back with students to get some of their questions, or even if they, I think it's just the beginning. I believe a lot in endurance. Endurance is really important to me, that if I start something, I want to run through it. I took a week off and to move aside for Black Lives Matter and to not post, and I want to be more conscious of going forward. I also, as a human being, want to always improve. So I think it's another platform as an opportunity to be a good person, give people a voice.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the best way possible. I mean, you get to just kind of call people up, have a conversation, see where it goes, and I think that's an exciting thing to kind of add to your repertoire. So
and it's just fun. It's a lot of fun. I really like connecting. I've worked with a lot of people, and a lot I've had some I've had on the podcast. I want people I don't know on there, but it's there's people I definitely looking forward to contacting and getting their points of view on anything,
Yeah, no, it's a big world out there. A lot of people, a lot of voices.
Yeah, it is.
So, and how do you, and maybe you don't even know, I don't know, but how do you strike a balance between, your illustration, your teaching, now your podcast, your own personal studio work, other things that is there a secret you can share with us, or what?
Well, the art side's like half of it. So I also teach Buddhism. So like every week I have to produce materials for that. So my family is very active in the community. So it's sort of like our day to day. I also, how do I balance making artwork? I do make a little less on purpose, because I want to be involved in my family and my community. So I take jobs that I want to do. Any job that you get can be exciting and to what you want to do. If somebody gives me a horrible job, I can be fulfilled as an image maker. If that's up to me, so I can be fulfilled for the day if I did a painting for a magazine, or if I did a painting for the podcast. As long as I'm doing paintings a day, I'm okay. I don't think there's a secret. I think you just have to love to make art, and just really be curious about what you can do. And one of the reasons I have so many techniques is because I'm just curious what's next.
Oh, and that's a good way to be. It lets you be kind of kind of open your, a conduit for whatever idea might come in, and then you see how it kind of comes out. So I think that's great.
And sewing too. So there's two dolls behind you. When I was sewing dolls and I'd make the pattern. I'd have the pattern printed on fabric, and then I'd make a sketch bag made for artists that would fit a moleskin and stuff. So my skills in sewing now let me make COVID-19 face masks for people. So like they're not wasted. It's not wasted. I can use my skills to promote my family business of herbal education. So it's great. It all ties in.
Yeah, and actually, I've got Chad was kind enough to make masks for us at RIT, so I've got mine right here next to my desk with this fabric. So yeah, and it's so fun to tell people, when they come in to see the shows now that they can make appointments, that yeah, this mask I'm wearing, Chad made the design, had it printed, and actually sewed this, and then that brings me to talking about the work that's behind me here, the dolls. So it's great. And we've actually, in the interactive version of the site for Chad's show, you can actually see some of his sketchbooks too at the very beginning of the exhibition. You can flip through sketchbooks, and you can actually see sketches of especially the bulldog doll here, and other work that's in the show too. But that's a really great feature to have. So
that was a good job on that. That people tell me they saw the sketchbooks, they really like it.
Yeah, that was Sarah said we gotta do something with these, and it'd be great to be able to flip through, and then she made it happen. So
thanks, Sarah. Sarah's great.
Yes,
She's talented.
All right. Well, I think there was a shout out, I believe, for you, not a question, but it was from Liz Babin Seaman. Says, my daughter Morgan says hello.
Oh, Morgan.
And she had you at RIT and admires your work, and she's an illustration major. So
I know Morgan. Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, I miss all those people.
And also D. Grohman said, so proud of you, Chad, Dad. So
that's my dad. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. Well, this has been a really great talk.
Yeah.
I think, it's been a great kind of, sprawling talk about what you do, but also connected to what's going on. And I think that that's just indicative of, what the artist's life is like. I mean, you're reacting to things, and you're hoping that the things you put back out there make some kind of impact. So, I really appreciate you for being here with us tonight, and also for RIT for being here. I'm just double checking that I'm not. I guess I'm just double checking that I'm not forgetting any comments. So anything that came up in the questions. But I'd like to thank RIT as well, Kat and Lisa and Todd, and for Todd for giving us a great talk from his standpoint and from RIT. So
thank you.
It's been a great evening. So
yeah, thank you everyone involved. It was really great to have everybody come together for this, and thanks for putting it on.
Yeah, and we have had no technical difficulties. And
I
can say that now that we're coming to a close. So we'll thank you for that as well. Well, thank you everyone also for tuning in. And we will be posting this in its entirety on YouTube, so you can watch this later. Just thanks everyone. So
yeah, thanks.
Have a great night.
Yeah, take care everyone.